Hello, hello. We are here for our monthly market update. We're going to run through and look at what the numbers ended up being, how everything closed out for August going into September. And it's just so crazy to me. We're in September, and I feel like we're almost in mid-September. Next week is mid-September. Then the next week it's like Christmas. That's how fast the rest of the year goes. So anyhow, we're going to go through, look at what the market numbers have been, kind of touch base on what the year's been looking like, how things compare, and then we are going to be talking interest rates with Dustin. But before we do any of that, I'm going to call our newest team member over here. This is Mike Kensaw. He is our new team buyer specialist. Just wanted him to jump on camera so you could see him. We are super excited to have him as a part of the team. And I think Mike's just as excited to be a part of the team.
Super excited to join the team and ready to start working with you guys.
Awesome.
So looking forward to it.
Yes. All right. You'll be seeing lots of Mike. We're going to get him more on video in coming videos, but for now he's making his Kim Mixon team Facebook Live debut. So thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's get started on market numbers for August, how everything closed out, how we're looking for this year, all that good stuff. This video, we're going to be pretty quick and to the point about numbers, and we're going to get Dustin in here to give us the news of interest rates. Like I said before, we'll try to put a positive spin on it. Okay, let's talk numbers first for August in Muskogee and Harris County. So in August of 2022, this past August, we had 302 closed sales. In August 2021, there were 383 closed sales. And in August of 2020, there were 304 closed sales. So we actually had less closed sales this past August by just a couple than we did in August of 2022. And a fair amount fewer, I guess, about 81 fewer closings in August for Muskogee and Harris County than we did in 2021. Not super surprising given interest rates and just kind of how the market has started to level out a little bit. Average days on market for August was 25 days. In 2021, it was 26 days. And in 2020, it was 62 days. So we definitely are still seeing, short average time on market. So that's great. Not a big difference in number of days on market. While there were kind of a handful of lower sales, we were about 81 lower closed units, the average time on market stayed about the same from last August to this August. Average sale price for August of 2022 was $268,000. In 2021, it was $218,000, and in 2020, it was $213,000. So you didn't see big growth in market value from 2020 to 2021, but we saw pretty significant growth in market value from August to August of 2021 to 2022. List to sale price percent, what did it list for? What did it actually close for? In 2022 August, it was 98.63%. 2021, it was 98.92, and 2020, it was 98.31. So it's really for the last 3 years hovered right around that 98% list to sale price, telling you that there's been a small margin of some level of negotiation going on. Now, what we have seen this year that we did not see last year was while we see things closing out still at 98% of list price, that is 98% of list price from the time that it went under contract, not the time it was listed. So if the seller did any price reductions, it does not take those price reductions into account. And what we have seen over the last probably 3 to 4 months is significantly more price reductions happening in the market. Now, I'm not saying that's a significant number of price reductions, but compared to last year when we really didn't see any sellers reducing prices, we are seeing some of that this year. And just to make sure that everybody understands, that's not accounted for when you look at list price to sale price. What doesn't really account for the original list price, it accounts for whatever the list price was when it went under contract. Right now, we currently in Muskogee and Harris County have about 372 active listings and about 409 pending sales. Compared to last year this time, we had about 379 active listings, so about the same number, not a big difference there. So we don't see significantly more inventory right now. But we also had 546 pending sales at around this time last year. So that's a pretty big difference in the number of pending sales from last August to this August. We had about 137 more pending sales this time last year. So we definitely see a reduction in overall pendings, which will trend in the market to how things close out this year and how we end up for the year. Obviously, pending sales are an indication of what's closing in the coming months. So we could look at these pending sales and say it's easy to kind of guess that we'll have about 137 or so less sales for the year over this same amount of time. So anyhow, just things to think about, things to consider. Okay, let's move on to Russell and Lee County. All right, in Russell and Lee County, closed sales for August, we had 120 closed sales. In 2021, we had 178 closed sales. In 2020, we had 156 closed sales. So again, you're seeing we've definitely got fewer closed sales in Russell and Lee County for August than we have seen over the last 2 years from 2020 to 2021. Not huge difference, but you know, enough that it's impacting market. Average days on market for August 2022 is 23 days. For August 2021, it was 23 days, so no change there. Sort of kind of the same thing that we saw in Muskogee and Harris County. Average time on the market is still holding month to month over the last year. And in 2020, average time on the market was about 45 days. Average sales price for closed sales in August 2022 was about $235,000. In 2021, it was $217,000, and in 2020, it was $210,000. So again, same thing that we've seen in Muskogee and Harris County. Our biggest growth has really been over this last year in market value. List to sale price percent for August 2022 was 99%. In 2021, it was 99.87%. And in 2020, it was 99.01. So again, where Muskogee County has really hovered at 98% of list to sale price, Russell and Lee County are hovering right at that 99%. So not any significant changes there just yet, but also taking into account sort of the same thought pattern with regard to how price reductions are happening across the board, and that's not really taken into account with the list to sale price. Active listings. Okay, right now we've got about 219 in Russell and Lee County with about 235 pending sales. This time last year we had about 131 active listings, so a pretty fair amount less. And we had 312 pending sales. So we had significantly more pending sales and significantly less active listings. So we are seeing inventory kind of start to come back a little bit. Still definitely at very low inventory levels though. We are nowhere near having a saturated market at this point. So for all intensive purposes, it still is a seller's market, but it's not as hot of a seller's market as it was this time last year due to interest rates, inventory levels, and a lot of those other factors. We've seen things cool off some. So that brings us to our next point. Now that we've gotten through where the market is as August closed out, let's bring Dustin in and talk some interest rate talk. We've got Dustin here. He is our resident mortgage expert. who's going to bring us the good, the bad, and the ugly on what's happening with interest rates right now.
All right, so it has been the last 90 days have been a whirlwind. I mean, they really have. A roller coaster. They've been up and down. June started kind of in the low fives. We saw some increases. We had a brief spike up into the sixes, depending on the product that you were looking at. And by the end of June, we had seen some reprieve, and then it had come back down to pre-spike. July flowed pretty much the same way. And we were hoping that August would end like June and July did. It has not ended that way. They have kind of risen back. We are not at the high for the year, but we're close to where we were prior to basically all of the reprieves. We're back. If you're looking at VA, you're probably going to be somewhere in that 5.5, 5.625 range, depending on credit score and just purchase price. A lot of variables, but that's probably what you can expect to see depending on who you call. Conventional, you can expect to see something in the sixes. I would say low sixes, maybe 6.25, just depending on if that's a primary residence or what your credit profile. There's a lot of factors in that, but somewhere between 6 and 6.5 is to be expected. We have seen some reports as far as inflation. There's been a lot of talk about what's causing it. And inflation has been something that we've talked about a lot. Kind of impacting this, and there have been people point to supply chain issues and the war in Ukraine, lots of different things. But the main catalyst for this, really, if you look back at the last 2.5 years from the start of the pandemic here, the federal government, we've injected about $5 trillion, into the U.S. And it's a lot of money. And so anytime you do that, you kind of see a devalue of the currency in a sense. So you can expect inflation to really be a problem. So until we kind of get that under control, I don't think you're going to see interest rates come back down. I think we can. I would be very shocked if we don't see them to continue to rise for a little while. If you look back just about 2 weeks ago at what the Fed chair said, they were very hawkish with their message as far as there may be some immediate pain for the American consumer. Even though we have seen some reports that have shown that inflation may have peaked and we might have it under control. I think they're very, very adamant about keeping it under control, and they don't want to let up. So I think we can expect to see some more rate hikes.
I was just about to ask you, what's the word on the street about the Fed raising rates? What's the latest you've heard on that?
I think we're going to see some more of that. I would not be shocked at all. That's kind of been their message, their tone. I mean, they just want to make sure that inflation is really under control. Just because we've seen things kind of trending towards they might be going the other way, they're not ready to let up yet. And I think if you're someone, I've read that the last time we were at this point was maybe the 70s or 80s, where we had something very similar going on, and at that time we had to kind of force ourselves into a recession to get things under control. So,
right. And that is very typical for those who know economy and know markets. It's very typical for this kind of cycle. So it's not anything to freak out about. It's just what markets do. They ebb and flow. They're up and they're down. And something I learned a while back about inflation was what happens in that process is an overreaction, essentially. So you'll sometimes see the Fed start hiking rates, and you see these big interest rate jumps, or what feel like big interest rate jumps to us, because they're trying to halt the market. They're trying to level the playing field. And so often that will happen at an excess, and so then it really stops some things and they back off. And that's what cycle we're in right now. We were in a very long cycle of extremely low interest rates for far longer than any of us would have ever guessed those low rates would have lasted. And now we're kind of, maybe you could say, paying the price for that. I mean, I guess that's probably not a fair price. We may not feel like it's fair that we're paying the price, but it just is the way the market goes. So a lot of decisions have to be made for clients, and I would encourage you, if you have not been tuning in monthly with us, go back. We try to keep these videos not too long at all, maybe 15-20 minutes at most. But go back and look at what Dustin has said, or listen to what Dustin has said, over probably June, July, and now just over the last couple of months, really explaining kind of what to expect. And he's been on point with a lot of that. You know, some of it's a guessing game, and Dustin and I listen to experts, and we try to give information here based on the experts that we follow, so that's not an exact science. But when we discuss how things happen and why, and how to take advantage of whatever these market situations might be, how do you take this snapshot in time and make it work for you? We talk about a lot of that kind of stuff, and a lot of it will be very individual to your circumstances. So, you know, you may have questions. Dustin, how are people going to call and get their questions answered about whether or not this is a good time for you to buy and sell? Not in the market in general, but for you personally. Dustin, how can they reach you?
You can always reach me. The best way to catch me is on my cell phone. Number 706-405-6555. You can call, text, either one. And if you want to reach me on Facebook, I'll put my information down on the bottom. If you want to send me a message on Messenger, my email, I'll put that down there too. But the quickest way is always my cell phone. So.
And his office is on the north end of town. They've got North Point Bank there with their home office for mortgage, kind of our local hub. You can visit him there. He'll meet you for coffee. He'll talk to you on the phone. He'll message you via. He does like to talk, y'all. Yeah. He does like to talk more than me. But
it's probably true.
It is true. But that's a good thing. That's a great thing. So he can get your situation under control and figure out what makes sense for you. Because in this market, you may not know for sure whether or not this is a good time for you to be considering buying or selling or whatever your circumstance might be. But he can paint that full picture, not just the, oh my gosh, interest rates went up yesterday.
Right.
There's more to it than that to determine timing and what is right for you. So let us help you with that. Let us help guide you and figure out, is now the right time, or do we set things up so that you're ready to make it happen in a different market circumstance, you know, which could be after the first of the year. We don't know. You know, I'd love to see, I know they're leveling out rates, trying to level out market with rates going up. I'd love to see some of that level out by the end of this year so that we go into 2023 maybe with some hopes of some relaxing of rates going into the spring.
Right.
So
yeah,
we'll
I
see.
agree. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, that would be great. So.
All right. Any other words of wisdom you want to share with the audience today?
Don't panic. Don't panic. So, you know, I've been guilty of it myself several times this year where rates have jumped. I panicked, you know, and then the very next week they've been right back where they were before. So we've been here before. You know, I would not panic. I wouldn't make any knee-jerk, you know, decisions or you know, really quick decisions. But let's talk about it. You know, before you freak out, let's talk about it. So
great advice. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think that wraps us up for today. Of course, tune in. Typically we try to hit the first Thursday of each month. So we're aiming for October now. Crazy. We're aiming for October. So we'll be back in October to go through how things ended up in September and really how the first 3 quarters of the year have rounded out going into fourth quarter. So I think we'll really probably be able to make some pretty good predictions on how the year as a whole is going to round out by our next meeting with you guys in October. And hopefully between now and then, all is good, all is well. We're getting into some fall weather, so we'll get a little heat reprieve. Yeah, we can hope and pray for maybe some rate reprieve, but that might be a little later before we see some of that.
Maybe a little while.
Yeah, maybe a little while. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
See ya.
See ya.